Good morning, boys and girls. This is your math e-learning lesson for Thursday, April the 16th. Today's lesson is on setting up, adding, and subtracting of decimals. So today's lesson really isn't a lot different from yesterday's. The only difference here is that you'll see the problems written horizontally, meaning going across rather than vertically, to make sure that you have that practice in how to set these problems up. So we're going to be looking at lessons 118 and 119 today. So let's take a look here. So we have this addition problem of decimals. We have 36 and 4/10 plus 4 and 26 hundredths plus 3 and 1/10. And again, written horizontally so that you have the opportunity and get that experience of setting it up vertically. So 36 and 4/10. 36 and 4/10. Now, remember that I told you that yesterday that in setting up or in adding and subtracting decimals, you of course always want to make sure that you have the decimal points lined up. So we have 36 and 4/10 plus 4 and 26 hundredths plus 3 and 1/10. And I had told you that, sometimes it's going to look a little different to you in that you're so used to, with whole numbers, everything lining up very neatly, everything lining up from the far right with the ones place, you would keep it all lined up. Decimals is a little bit different. With decimals, you are lining up your numbers. However, you do that differently than with whole numbers. With decimals, you're lining up based on where the decimal point is. So it's okay that you don't see any digits over here, but you have a 6 here. Okay? It's okay that you don't have digits here, but there's a 3 here. That's okay. You're lining up by the decimal points. The more we work with decimals, the better you'll understand why this is. So we start over here, okay, and you're going to add the numbers as if they were whole numbers. Nothing plus 6 plus nothing is 6. Then you have 4 plus 2 is 6 plus 1 is 7. Then you're bringing down your decimal point, and then you're adding 6 plus 4, which is 10. 10 plus 3 is 13. Put down the 3, you carry over your 1, and 1 plus 3 is 4. Okay, so your total here, your sum is 43 and 76 hundredths. Again, lining them up by the decimal point, not by digits, but by the decimal points. By lining up by the decimal points, everything else will fall into place where it needs to be for decimals. Same thing when you're subtracting. Here we have 36 and 45 hundredths minus 4 and 2/10. And again, lining up by the decimal point. Then we subtract. 5 minus nothing is 5. 4 minus 2 is 2. Bringing down the decimal point, 6 minus 4 equals 2, and 3 minus nothing equals 3. And your final answer here is 32 and 25 hundredths. So again, it's all about the decimal points. All right. If we take a look in lesson 118, let's go to the practice there, please. Lesson 118, the practice. So we have 4 and 6/10 plus 12 and 57 hundredths. Okay, I'm going to write them all, and then we'll go back and do them. 2 and 36 hundredths plus 42 and 8/10. 3 and 6/10 plus 27 hundredths plus 1 and 29 hundredths. And then the last one is 14 and 6/10 plus 36 and 4/10 plus 16 and 35 hundredths. Okay, so now they're written horizontally. We need to set them up vertically. 4 6/10 plus 12 57/100. Okay, again, you line up by those decimal points. Nothing plus 7 equals 7. 6 plus 5 equals 11. Bring down that decimal point. 1 plus 4 equals 5. 5 plus 2 equals 7. Nothing plus 1 equals 1. 17 17/100. Okay, that was A. B. 2 36/100 plus 42 8/10. Okay, and so we add 6 plus nothing equals 6. 3 plus 8 equals 11. Bring down that decimal point. 1 plus 2 equals 3. 3 plus 2 equals 5. Nothing plus 4 equals 4. So it's 45 16/100. Next one, for C, we have 3 6/10 plus 0 27/100 plus 1 29/100. So we add. So here we have nothing, and then 7 plus 9 is 16. Put down the 6, carry over the 1. 1 plus 6 equals 7. 7 plus 2 equals 9. 9 plus 2 equals 11. Put down the 1, carry over the 1. Bring down the decimal point. 1 plus 3 equals 4. 4 plus 1 equals 5. So we have 5 16/100. And then the last one, D, we have 14 6/10 plus 36 4/10 plus 16 35/100. Okay, again, you're lined up by the decimal points. Okay, and so we add here, nothing plus 5 equals 5. 6 plus 4 equals 10. 10 plus 3 equals 13. Bring down your decimal point. Okay, 1 plus 4 equals 5. 5 plus 6 equals 11. 11 plus 6 equals 17. Put down the 7, carry over the 1. 1 plus 1 equals 2. 2 plus 3 equals 5. 5 plus 1 equals 6. We have 67 35/100. Okay, so again, each problem, we're lining them up by the decimal point. Now let me just show you, for example, over here, 2 36/100 plus 42 8/10. Well, 8/10 is sort of the same as having 80/100. And so if it was 80/100, you can see that, yes, it looks like now it's lined up the way it should be. Okay, but this is fine that it's 8/10. Remember, 8/10 is the same in a sense as 80/100. Okay, but we're doing 8/10. Now, sometimes with adding decimals, if you feel that you need to, if you feel that you need to add in your zeros, okay, you can do that also. But again, really not necessary, because you're just simply lining up by the decimal points. But you can see that if you did fill in zeros, you can see that it looks like it makes more sense to you now, the way you're more used to looking at whole numbers. Okay, but again, it's just really all about the decimal point, so that zero isn't necessary. You're lining up by the decimal point, and you know if there's nothing here, okay, that's equal to 0. Okay, so that's why it's not necessary to fill in those zeros. Okay, so that's in your adding of decimals. We looked at, originally I showed you looking at adding decimals and how to line them up, and then the subtracting of decimals and how to line them up. These were the examples from 118, adding the decimals. If you go to 119, okay, here for lesson 119, they have a few going across. So let's take a look at the E, F, and G. Okay, the other ones they already have set up for you. So let's just take a look at E, F, and G. So here you have 3 and 45 hundredths minus 2 and 1/10, 36 and 47 hundredths minus 3 and 6/10, and 34 and 6/10 minus 3 and 46 hundredths. Okay, so let's take a look at these. Okay, again, they are written horizontally. We want to set them up vertically. So we have 3 and 45 hundredths minus 2 and 1/10. Okay, again, you're lining up by the decimal point. Okay, this is E. So 5 minus nothing is 5. 4 minus 1 is 3. Bring down that decimal point. 3 minus 2 equals 1. So you have 1 and 35 hundredths. Okay, for F, 36 and 47 hundredths minus 3 and 6/10. Okay, again, subtract. 7 minus nothing equals 7. 4 minus 6 can't be done, so we need to trade. 6 becomes 5. 4 becomes 14. 14 minus 6 equals 8. Bring down the decimal point. 5 minus 3 equals 2. 3 minus nothing equals 3. 32 and 87 hundredths. Again, lining up by those decimal points. And then finally, G. 34 and 6/10 minus 3 and 46 hundredths. And now you subtract. Now, here is where you really might want to fill in that 0 to make sure you're working correctly, because here is a very common mistake. Right here, we have nothing minus 6, and many students will put down 6 as the answer. That's incorrect. Okay, that's incorrect. What you need to do here, you need to get that 0 filled in here. Why? Because you actually need to trade. 6 becomes 5, that 0 becomes 10. You're saying 10 minus 6 equals 4. 5 minus 4 equals 1. Bring down your decimal point. 4 minus 3 equals 1. 3 minus nothing equals 3. Okay, you're not saying, without filling in the 0, and if you just brought down a 6, that's incorrect, because you're saying, if I have nothing, I'm taking 6 away and I end up with 6. Okay, if you have no candy, okay, you have no candy in your hands, how can you give 6 pieces away? You can't. You don't have any candy to give away. Same thing here. Okay, you can't just bring down that 6, and that's a very common mistake. And so you need to make sure here that you're filling in that 0, okay, to show you that you're not saying, we're not just bringing down the 6. Okay, this number here now, this digit has to be a 0, so that when you trade, you have a 10. You need a 10 here, okay, because you're trading. Again, we can't say, I have nothing, I'm giving 6 away. I have no candy, I'm giving 6 pieces away. You can't do that. Okay, so this can't be done. So you're filling in that 0, and then you're trading. 6 becomes 5. This will become a 10. 10 minus 6 equals 4. And again, the way to prove that would be to go back and add up your two numbers, add up your answer and what you subtracted, because remember, this number plus this number has to equal the number you started with. Right? So again, if you're unsure of your answer, you go back and you add. So if we were going to add 31 and 14 hundredths plus 3 and 46 hundredths. We add that. 4 plus 6 is 10. 1 plus 1 is 2. 2 plus 4 equals 6. Bring down your decimal point. 1 plus 3 equals 4, and 3 plus nothing equals 3. That's what we started with. Okay? So if you did anything differently here, when you go back and you add these two numbers, you wouldn't get the number you started with. Okay, so again, in some of these problems, you might want to do the addition checking to make sure you've gotten the correct answer. So let's take a look at a few more examples where we have that similar situation where you're going to need to fill in your 0. So we have 26, okay, and 2/10 minus 12 and 56 hundredths. And over here we'll do 8 and 7/10 minus 6 and 54 hundredths. Okay. All right, so again, we're ready to subtract. There's nothing here. Minus 6, again, same thing. I have no candy. I cannot give 6 pieces away. So what do I need to do? You need to fill in that 0 so that you can trade. And when I trade, 2 becomes 1, the 0 becomes 10. 10 minus 6 equals 4. I have 1 now. 1 minus 5 can't be done, so like in any other subtraction, you need to trade so that this 6 becomes a 5, and that 1 is now 11. 11 minus 5 equals 6. Bring down decimal point. 5 minus 2 equals 3. 2 minus 1 equals 1. 13 and 64 hundredths. Over here, I have 8 and 7/10 minus 6 and 54 hundredths. So I'm ready to subtract. I have nothing. Again, no candy. I can't give 4 pieces away. So I'm going to fill in with the 0 so that I can trade now. Okay, 7 will become 6. The one that I've taken from the 6, I'm going to bring over to the 0. Now I have 10. 10 minus 4 equals 6. 6 minus 5 equals 1. Bring down the decimal point, and 8 minus 6 equals 2. 2 and 16 hundredths. Okay. Again, at any point, if you're not sure that you've gotten the correct answer, then do your addition checking. 13 and 64 hundredths plus 12 and 56 hundredths. Add it up. My answer here should be what I started with. 4 plus 6 is 10. 1 plus 6 is 7. 7 plus 5 equals 12. Bring down my decimal point. 1 plus 3 is 4. 4 plus 2 is 6. 1 plus 1 is 2. 26 and 20 hundredths. And that is what I started with. Same thing here. If you did this and you're just really not sure, is this correct or not, then you want to add. Remember, this plus this equals what you started with. So 2 and 16 hundredths plus 6 and 64 hundredths. And so we add. 6 plus 4 equals 10. Put down the 0, carry the 1. 1 plus 1 equals 2. 2 plus 2 plus 5 equals 7. And then you bring down your decimal point, and 2 plus 6 equals 8. 8 and 70 hundredths, and that's what you started with. So at any time, if you're unsure of your answer, you're looking at it, it doesn't seem like it looks correct to you, then do your addition checking. This plus this equals what you started with. Okay? All right, so that is the setting up, adding, and subtracting of decimals. Remember, as I told you yesterday, and we went over this morning, it's all about lining up those decimal points. Just line up the decimal points, and then your addition and your subtraction is just your basic addition and subtraction. If your decimal points are lined up correctly, you should be getting the correct answer. If you don't have the decimal points lined up correctly, you're not going to get a correct answer. All right, today, lesson 118, you're going to work on numbers 1 to 12. On lesson 118, numbers 1 to 12. Lesson 119, you'll be working on numbers 13 to 30. Okay? All right, if you have any questions or you need my help, please make sure you give me a call. I'll talk to you later. Bye.